Welcome to the board. Hold on. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Board of Health meeting of May 19th, 2025. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chairman. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023 extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until June 30th, 2027, this meeting of the Chatham Board of Health is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that people who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 964-646-240, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast, simulcast on Chatham TV, Channel 8 and 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. And I'll turn the meeting over to our chairman, Dr. Noble Hanson.
Thank you. It shall be the policy of this board to conduct its meetings under the open meetings law so as to encourage public participation whenever time permits and as part of agenda item discussions. And we have four items on the agenda for today, but first let's establish a quorum. And when I say your name, please say present. Carol Boyce.
Present.
Joanna Kale.
Present.
Noble Hanson, present. So we have a quorum, and we may have one late member. First on the agenda is a continued discussion and review of revised transfer facility regulations and proposed refuse hauler registration form requirement. So we've been working on the transfer station and waste from other towns, and there's three separate things we're doing. The first thing Judy has worked on and given us an example of changes to strengthen up the registration form for the commercial haulers. The previous form didn't really say much, and we had talked about having some very specific language that was maybe even a little redundant to make sure that the point is made to the haulers that they're only hauling trash from Chatham to the transfer station. And you all should have a copy, but I'll just quickly go over there's 5 things here. This is for the commercial trash haulers. I, the undersigned, attest to the accuracy of the information provided in this application. I affirm that a licensed commercial refuse hauler, my operation will comply with the requirements of the Chatham Board of Health regulations regarding the Chatham Transfer Station Solid Waste Facility. All waste, commercial and residential, transported to, deposited at the facility was collected and or generated within the boundaries of Chatham. Another one, waste will not be mixed with waste from other towns. And then last, I understand that failure to comply with the Board of Health solid waste regulations could result in the forfeiture of your license to use the town of Chatham transfer station. So this is the commercial hauler application form, which is handled by the health department. Judy usually takes care of this, and this is a form that she generates and can do this on her own. So first, is there discussion from other members of the board about those? The intent is to make sure it's perfectly clear that the refuse is just from the town of Chatham.
I don't have a copy of that.
Oh,
You don't?
do you have a copy of this, Joanna?
I do.
Yeah, okay. That's it there. And,
You have one.
yeah. Oops, excuse me.
Yeah, Judy.
So I think that, but this will be on the yearly application form. The renewal date, I believe, is in December. But we can discuss this today. If there's no controversy or questions, I think we can just go ahead and give Judy the okay to make those changes. Judy, you may want to.
It's an online application. It's very easy to just change. You know, a lot of our applications have such similar types of attestations for different reasons. So we can add that in, and we'll start renewing our haulers' licenses in usually November or December. Their licenses are up at the end of December, so usually in November we start renewing them.
And then I believe Mr. Faley had asked that he could have a list of all the commercial carriers.
Yeah, I think I sent him one.
At
Yeah.
least,
Yes, so,
okay. I don't think this requires a vote. It can just be if there's no discussion.
Quick question.
Yes.
On the odor complaints, how long have they been going on?
off and on for years, really, but last summer, we had a few, and I think the concerns have been about the condition of the building itself, and as you know, they've got funds approved to rehab that building, so that hopefully will help quite a bit, so.
But I would ask you then if there are any comments from the audience or online, just about this part of the sort of beefing up the application form. And if there are none, then we can just sort of agree to go ahead and let Judy make the changes.
Okay, yep, we'll take care of that.
Anyone online?
I don't see anyone, no.
Okay. So I think that will help a lot. It means the driver has to get out. Well, this is the application, okay. Then the next thing we're working on is something that the Board of Health has to do by having a public hearing. The Board of Health writes the Board of Health Solid Waste Regulations. We write them, and to amend them, we have to have a public hearing and go through that process. But what we want to do is require that all contractors coming to dump their waste, the commercial haulers, sign in at the gate sort of a check sheet saying that all that material is from Chatham alone. And each time they come, they would have to hop out. They get weighed anyway, so it's really 30 seconds more. They pop over to the guards, the gatehouse, sign a form saying that it's Chatham waste, and then they're off. And that may be putting a lot on the drivers, but the drivers will relay that to their owners, and then they can make the adjustment. That's the thinking. That is just something for us to discuss today, and if there's no change, if there's agreement that we should move forward on that, then that is something that Judy will have to work on and set up the public hearing and get the exact language.
For changes to the regulation, I don't know if Rob has any comments.
Yeah, Rob
on
had
this.
some concern about the time in the summer, maybe. Did you want
Yeah,
to speak to
so
that?
I think we should let him address it.
So they have to get weighed anyway.
Yeah, thank
And the
you.
regulations now say, what's the wording? It's, they have to
To
get,
check in, I think,
logged in,
logged in.
which is interpreted as being weighed, but we're adding that they have to actually check a thing.
So I see it more of an issue now, but as we just recently got approved for the funding to redo the recycling area, we'll be doing some modifications near the gatehouse, so the scale will be immediately adjacent to the gatehouse going forward. So,
Nice.
so to be able to have like a driver side interaction right with the window of the gatehouse. So once we do those renovations, it'll be really simple. It'll just be a transition period between now and then.
And this would, so we're thinking mainly of the garbage haulers, the garbage trucks that you see, the commercial ones, but then there are also commercial haulers that bring in demo debris and that kind of material as well, and are you interested in checking that all is also just from Chatham?
Yes, but they don't necessarily require a special license. They come in and we ask
But you
them.
weigh them?
We do, and staff asks them, is this generated in Chatham, and they do. But if they were to sign an attestation, I think that would be a little bit of a stronger enforcement.
Right. So I think our regulations now, they have a demo part and then a waste, so we would include that on both of them.
Right.
Okay, so I think that's pretty straightforward. And then the last thing is, Judy has put together a letter that it's a draft letter that we would be forwarding to the Select Board in support of Mr. Faley adjusting the fees. And I'll just kind of briefly read it, not all the fees, but what it says. The Board of Health has been reviewing the issue of commercial haulers' use of the Chatham Transfer Station. The board became concerned for the following reasons: odor complaints which came up particularly last summer. A lot of it has to do with the floor, which is going to be fixed with the next section, but also the volume. Two other communities, namely Brewster, and this was key, we learned last summer, named Brewster does not accept commercial weight in its transfer station. So all the refuse picked up in Brewster has to go somewhere. And the transfer station's inability to check incoming loads for town of origin. We're addressing that with the regulations. Now, the next paragraph, the Board of Health is recommending that the transfer station fees be raised for commercial and construction demolition debris to match those of surrounding towns, therefore eliminating the incentive to bring the waste to Chatham. And then we have a chart. And basically what it shows is the Chatham charges per ton are about, at least for the waste, is half of what the surrounding towns charge, is about half. And Harwich, which runs a regional transfer station, so that Brewster trash could be brought there, is about twice as much as ours. So there is a financial incentive for them to bring the waste to Chatham, and it's very difficult to check where it comes from, so that's been a concern. This is something that the Select Board would have to change, and our letter would be in support of Mr. Faley as he goes in front of the Select Board. And I believe that Mr. Faley has a lot more to add to the fee structure in the transfer station and what might be done about it.
Yeah, if I may approach, I've got up some paper copies. It's just a spreadsheet of
yeah.
some proposed rate changes.
Thanks, Rob.
So if I may, I'll just walk you through the spreadsheet. So on the left-hand side is just the description that's on our brochure, the one that we publish at the transfer station that has all the different categories of waste. If we go down the list, Brewster, I went through the three adjoining towns, Brewster, Orleans, and Harwich, and that's basically what their current rates are for each of those. It's not always an apples-to-apples comparison because they may not have the exact same descriptors, but I used the information that I had that was available. In the blue column is Chatham's existing rate change, what we charge now. I wasn't proposing any changes to the sticker or recycling fee costs. These are basically a reaction to what the market is charging us to dispose of all this material. So we're trying to be reactive to what it's actually costing Chatham. I think there are about maybe a dozen individual rate changes, and I'll go through those individually if that's what the board prefers.
Sure.
Okay. So the first is just 9 to 11 bags. We have 3 different categories. People who don't have stickers, we charge them by the bag, basically. So 1 to 3 bags is $5. 4 to 8 bags is $10, and once you get up to 9 to 11 bags, it's only $15. I just wanted to raise that to $20 because there could be a lot of weight in 9 to 11 bags, and we do pay for it by the ton to get rid of. Second category is something that we charge currently, but it's not listed on our brochure. It's not a separate category, so that's just something I wanted to introduce, and that's for televisions, monitors, computer towers, etc. We currently charge $15 each for those, and I just wanted to track that as a separate item. Commercial disposal. We currently charge $90 per ton. Out of pocket, it costs us $107.42 per ton. If you include hauling by a third-party hauler, our costs are $135 per ton. And I provided a lot of that background information in the columns to the right. I'd like to raise that to $175 per ton to match Harwich's fee. You can see it's still less than Orleans that charges $240 per ton. And as you mentioned, Brewster doesn't take commercial refuse. So the $175 would be the $135 out of pocket plus We just bought 4 new trailers at over $400,000. Brakes, tires, wear and tear on the trailers, that all needs to be replenished. So this would be kind of a slush fund to help us rebuild some of that the next time we needed a new trailer. We'd actually like to have a 5th trailer for the summer volumes, but right now we're limited to 4. Commercial single stream, currently we charge $110 per ton. We pay $121 a ton to get rid of it, plus our own trucking costs. So I'd like to raise that to $150 per ton.
What is commercial single stream?
Some of the haulers collect mixed, intermingled recycling. It's not separated. So we have to send it out to a facility and they separate it there.
But this is what would come in the garbage trucks that would?
Yes, but
dump
it's
it in
just,
on the
it would
tipping
just be
room floor?
recycling though.
It's recycling, yeah.
Okay,
So like the glass, the metal, the plastic is all commingled.
yeah.
And you see a lot of towns don't even accept that. So this is kind of a unique situation for Chatham. Going down the list a little further, upholstered chairs. There could be some weight there. We only charge $5 for an upholstered chair, but some of them are quite heavy. We'd like to raise that to $15 per chair. Demolition debris, that's a big one. Currently, we charge $190 a ton. And we pay $196 per ton. It's interesting, we just signed we're just in the process of signing a new contract with our vendor, a 3-year contract. The price is going down $6 a ton, so we're going back to $190 a ton. But the following year, it goes up to $200 a ton, and the year after that, it goes up to $210 a ton. So instead of coming before the board and the select board every year, I'd like to just raise it to $225 a ton. We still have a lot of labor involved with handling, breaking down larger demo material, putting it in the dumpsters and things of that nature. So it is pretty labor intensive. You can see Brewster and Orleans already charge $225 a ton, and Harwich is at $205 a ton. Mattresses and box springs, I'd like to raise that from $30 each to $50 each. We used to charge, when it was $30, it was $8 for us to get rid of those mattresses. We had a lot of problems with that vendor, and we signed on with a new vendor. It's now $21.50 a ton. We get over 1,400 mattresses a year in Chatham. For a community the size of Chatham, that's a very large number. If we have a rejected mattress because it's moldy or wet, it costs us $90 each to get rid of. So I'd like to build a little bit of capacity for rejects and just the handling and trucking. We have to handle it sometimes 2 and 3 times before we dispose of it. I'd like to add a new category for crib mattresses. We often get complaints that people, crib mattress is so small, why are they paying the same rate? It's just because we don't have another category to capture that. So I'd like to just charge $10 for crib mattresses. Typically, crib mattresses we dismantle on site. We take the springs out and put them in the metal pile. We take a lot of the other things apart. So it is labor intensive, but it just goes in with the normal municipal solid waste. 3 more left. Bear with me, please. So sofas. We have a category sofas and sofa beds. You can see the sofas last year we took in 225. Sofa beds, we only took in 25. If I were to guess, I would say the majority probably were sofa beds, but people weren't being honest with us because they wanted to pay the cheaper price. So I'd like to just level the playing field, and all sofas are $30 a piece. Maybe just combine those into a single category. Large truck tires, we charge $15 a piece. It costs us $20 a piece to get rid of them. I'd like to charge at least the $20 a piece so we can break even. And the last category is something that's not listed, that's fire extinguishers. We currently charge $2. It costs us $6 to get rid of them. I would like to upgrade that to a $10 charge. Everything else is pretty consistent. I think we can hold tight on all the other rates.
Right, thank you. Yeah, so our interest with the issues that came up was primarily the commercial disposal and the demo. You've kind of broadened it to a lot of things. I suppose, do all these things come under our,
All of the categories of waste are in our solid waste regulations, but we don't set the fees, so,
we don't set the fees, but so we have an interest in all of this that he's
yes,
talking about?
yep.
So if we generate a letter in support, it should include some with language that would encompass this whole thing, I guess.
Well, yeah,
Or-
we
or
just,
maybe it
we,
does.
we support increases. I can take our chart out and, you know, and just say we support the changes that Rob is going to be recommending. So, instead of listing them all, because I'm sure you're gonna have to do the same presentation for them. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's the select board that sets the fees, but what we want to do is write a letter to the select board requesting from our viewpoint that the fees should be increased to match the other towns to take away the incentive. That's the first thing.
right.
And then you have a second goal in making it cost-wise fair. But now, other questions or comments from the board? And then I'd ask Mr. Faley, have you had a chance to look at the letter that the demo, the draft letter that Judy put together?
Do they,
I'm not sure if I've seen that.
I
Okay,
can't
well, I
remember.
basically read it, and but it includes the example fees from the towns, and then the two other things we're doing is separate paragraphs that don't really have to do with you directly. But is there anything that you would like to see in our letter of support that can help you with what you're trying to do?
If you could just reference the proposed rate changes, I think that would carry more weight in
Yep.
front of the select board.
Definitely.
And we're currently trying to have a public hearing in front of the select board at their June 10th meeting.
June 10th.
So the rates could go into effect on July 1st.
All right, so 3 weeks or so.
Correct.
Yeah,
And we need 2 weeks for a hearing.
So that'll be when you present your whole thing to the select board?
Correct.
Okay, and then they should have our letter, and then we would probably have someone be there to represent us if there's a question.
Yeah.
We'd take volunteers. I'm just kidding.
I can be
Okay,
there.
so, June 10th. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Anything else, Judy, that we,
No,
I mean, I think that covers it, and I mean, to us, with, you know, the fact that Brewster just closed their transfer station to all commercial haulers. So I imagine there are other towns in the state that have done the same thing, so, I mean, but that raises the question, and the fact that our rates for the basic waste is half of the surrounding towns, and there's not a real good ability to check where it's coming from, leads us to think we need to firm that up as best we can without, that's what we've tried to do.
I'm gonna be meeting with Rob, and one of his staff people tomorrow, and also Carrie from the county, to talk about transfer station issues and recycling, but also I'm gonna talk with Carrie about looking at our regs and see where we can make some changes.
And
to
who's
make them-
Carrie?
From Barnstable County, the solid waste,
The woman that spoke earlier to us?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. She's
Oh,
the,
she's-
she's
yeah, very
the
knowledgeable.
coordinator for Cape Cod.
Right.
And she's quite knowledgeable and very helpful, so. So I can review this letter,
And our next,
and share it with Rob and you, and then we can send it out, so we get it out by the end of the month.
right, and then if you make some minor modifications, does it have to come back before us, or can you just do it
No,
on
I don't
what
think
we've
it does.
talked about?
It
Yeah,
doesn't,
there's no-
if you guys
nothing.
are comfortable with
Okay.
that. I can share it, and if you have any comments, you can let me know.
Okay. Other questions or comments from the board? Or questions or comments from the public?
Not
Online
online,
or in the room?
nope.
Excuse me?
You need to come up to the mic if you're gonna,
Tires, did you say?
So we've got different categories of tires. So small tires are $5. Regular size, passenger car tires are $10, and large truck tires are $15. The only ones we would propose changing are the large truck tires, because it costs us more to get rid of it.
okay, good.
Okay, I think that's a good plan.
Okay,
And
thank you
then,
for your support, appreciate it.
June 10th, so hopefully they'll move ahead.
Okay, thank you.
And I think there are some
Thanks.
changes there too, so that'll be interesting.
Thank
Okay,
you, Rob.
thank you. All right. Okay, next on the agenda is definitive subdivision plan review for William Franklin and Marie Franklin, 48 Sylvan Way, Lot 29, Paul Sweetster, Land Supervisor. And Mr. Sweetser? Sweetser.
Sweet, sir.
Sweetser. If you could just sort of present what's happened here, the case. You'll need to be up at the,
The mic.
Sorry, Paul. Yeah, I wasn't sure whether that was on or not.
Jump around from town to town, so.
Yeah.
Anyways, what we're trying to do is we're trying to come up with a road layout to divide two lots on this property. And we've come up with a plan that we believe the planning board is gonna go along with. And we already have one house that's already constructed in there. And it already has a septic system and everything else. And we're proposing a second house. And what we've done, hopefully you've got the plans there for showing a house location, septic, and trying to make sure everything complies with the Title V.
okay, and, so Judy, let me ask you, so this is a definitive subdivision?
Yep.
Now, was there a preliminary subdivision here, or it's not necessary, or how
No.
does that work?
We had an approval not required plan that went in front of the planning board, but the problem was, there was a cul-de-sac that was shown on the recorded plan, but it really didn't exist. So we had to come in and create a definitive plan.
Okay,
Paul, do you know how many bedrooms are in the existing house?
In the existing house? Six.
Okay,
How's that for an answer?
that's, sounds about right. I just, if you're gonna have 70,000 square feet, more than that, in the new Lot 1, so you still have to abide by our nitrogen loading regulations, but since if you have 6 bedrooms, you're under that, so that's good. No
Right, we-
change would have to be made. And then the new lot would not be allowed more than 6 bedrooms.
Yeah, actually, in 1 minute, please.
We never got house plans for this.
no, I think because this is a subdivision plan. So,
What? Yeah.
Okay, so on Lot 1, we had 71,211 square feet. Lot 2, we have 65,441 square feet.
Good.
so the existing dwelling's going to remain,
Right,
and that already has a septic system.
right. That already has a system, yeah.
And then there'll be a house to be built on Lot 2, and then do they come again before the board when they have a plan for the septic system?
Not necessarily.
Only if they're asking for a variance?
Right, right.
Okay,
So most likely they won't be coming before you.
And each lot can have 6 bedrooms.
Yes, they're very large lots.
1.5 acres, so that's like 60 houses.
1 bedroom per 10,000 square feet, so, yep.
And then,
And
Was-
do you review the plans to make sure that they only?
Oh, yeah, I review all the plans,
and then it comes before the board only if they're asking for a variance?
right.
Yeah, otherwise you approve it. And when does soil testing, formal soil testing with data have to be done
They,
for
us-
a new septic system?
it's done in the months before the plans are drawn up and
the time
and
they
then
submit for
submitted.
the,
So we usually go out, it could be up to a year before, but have we done any testing out there?
There is on the plan, there is soil test logs.
Okay,
They were done in 2024.
okay. Yeah, I kind of remember that, I think Lucas went out, so it's generally all sand in that area, I believe, so.
Right, so this is coming back again. Yeah, okay, other questions or issues? And any comment from the public or in the audience?
Seeing none.
Okay, so Judy has reviewed things and has recommended for approval of the definitive subdivision plan. And if there's no other questions or comments, maybe we can get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion to approve the definitive subdivision plan for 48 Sylvan Road, and a second?
Second.
Yep. And then I'll take a roll call vote. When I call your name, please answer. Carol Boyce,
Yes.
Virginia Kale,
Yes.
Joanna Kale, and Noble Hanson, yes. And John Beckley has just, a member has just joined us, so you get part of the quorum, and we'll get your voice on the next one, I guess, John. Okay, so that is granted for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, and John Beckley has joined us on the board, so if when I call your name, say yes, and you're a part of the quorum. John Beckley?
Yes.
Okay. And the last
Very
we have
official.
modified definitive subdivision plan for Alan Perot and Joan Perot, 79 Forest Beach Road, East Southeast LLC. And Thad is here to present the case, I believe.
Good afternoon, Thad Eldridge, East Southeast, with my intern Paul Carlson to see a government meeting in progress. We were before you a few years ago with this one, and we're now flipping it. So we had a 30,000 square foot lot to the north, a 40,000 square foot lot to the south. Everything was endorsed. And then the client said, no, I think I want to change my mind. I want a 40,000 to the north and a 30,000 to the south. We hadn't made it all the way through land court yet because they had a few technical difficulties that were going on. So we're going for a modified subdivision, so we kept the land court file open with them. We'll be back before the planning board. Other than the shared driveway that was going to extend from Forest Beach Road to the southerly lot, everything is the same, and obviously the 10,000 square foot change between the two lots. That would be 4 or 5 bedrooms to the north, or it's a 3-bedroom house, and 3 to 4 bedrooms to the south, where there's nothing at the moment. So if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So Judy, I'd ask you, what's a modified definitive subdivision plan? Or Thad?
So when you do a definitive subdivision plan, that's a bigger filing. We're modifying that definitive subdivision. It's almost like doing a new subdivision over again, but changing everything.
So you basically changed the lot lines to,
We could have finished the land court process, gone back to the land court and done this under an approval not required plan and not been before you because of the A&R. But because we were still in the land court process, we chose to go with the modified, so we wouldn't have to double file with them.
okay, so, so when we're approving that the lot is, or the lots are acceptable for a septic system.
Yeah.
And then, now, there's a proposed dwelling.
Yes.
Now, are we dealing with that right now? No.
No, the planning board really wanted to see the proposed dwelling or a proposed site plan, and We've seen this in a few subdivisions before. Because of the stormwater questions here, there's a low point in the road that always floods. Judy's Lane was paved without any real review. Not this Judy, a different Judy.
Not my lane.
The neighbors added a catch basin at one point to help take care of those problems. The town tennis court, of all things, contributes more stormwater runoff to this area than anything else. And because of those problems, the planning board really wanted us to look at how do we make sure that this lot doesn't contribute to those stormwater woes.
So when you get ready to deal with that, you'll bring the septic system plan to Judy in the future, and she'll approve it, and if it needed a variance for some reason, then it would come to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay,
Can I just add?
Yes.
Is the access for this lot going to be off of
Bobby's lot.
Bobby's and Judy's?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's gonna kind of go up into that lot, or?
Yeah, the design that we had, it went up into the lot, and it was kind of a walkout to make it work. The Peralts were looking at this as their retirement home. They've been living in the historic to the north, and they renovated that. They were going to sell it to develop to the south, but they really didn't like the layout that they were getting here. They really want that single-floor living for their retirement years, and it just wasn't lending itself to that with the hillside. Yeah, there's gonna be a steep hill going up. We'll have trench drains in order to capture the stormwater runoff. We'll
Just out of-
likely have a different plan out there. That was just a placeholder, put a rectangle down and get it going.
just out of interest, did you have to get some special permission to make access off Bobby's Lane?
No, this has rights within Bobby's Lane to begin with, so.
What is lot 7?
That's the road. So under the land court, and roads are weird. Who owns the road? And unless you designate a specific owner of that road, it falls under a weird statute called the derelict fee statute. So in this case, we wanted the option to be able to retain interest in that road or to be able to convey it. So under the land court, we had to designate it as a lot. Weird rules, and I guess there's a reason behind it.
Okay, other questions or comments from the board? And so once they build on lot 6, then they will come back to Judy and she'll get to review all of that. And any comments from the public or the room on subdivision for 79 Forest Beach Road?
Nope, nobody online.
Okay. And Judy has recommended approval for the modified definitive subdivision plan for 79 Forest Beach Road. So if there's no other discussion, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the modified definitive subdivision plan for 79 Forest Beach Road, South Chatham.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, and we can take a vote. Carol Boyce,
Yes.
John Beckley,
Yes.
Joanna Kale,
Yes.
Noble Hanson, yes. Okay, so you're all set.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And next on the agenda is a continued discussion and review of revised bedroom definition. And Judy has put together a, whereas before the bedroom definition kind of was within a bunch of regulations, she's put together a separate, quote, policy for determining bedroom number in residential dwellings in the town of Chatham. And it's based off a little bit what's done in other towns. Judy kind of put this together, and maybe, do you want to comment on what you've done here, Judy?
So what I did, you indicated at our last meeting that you liked the Hingham format, because it was very narrative-driven and kind of, a description of different rooms and how they saw them. So I basically took their format, I changed it a little for our benefit. The only thing I called it a policy, so I'm not sure how I would add this type of language to our existing regulations. So, I guess that's something that I have to figure out whether we're gonna just do this as a policy, and from now on, all bedrooms will be looked at based on this policy. The other thing, I don't know if this can supersede our regulation definition, which has a lot of the same stuff in it. This is just more descriptive.
Right, this would be part of our nitrogen loading regulation.
And our solid waste, our subsurface sewage disposal regulation.
Right. But it would require definitive language, public hearing, and then we would vote and pass
For
it in.
both regulations. This wouldn't, as a
We'd
policy,
have to
we
figure
could
out
just-
how to insert it into it. So
Right.
this is like a preliminary discussion, I think, right now, because it's complicated. We want to firm up how we define a bedroom, maybe be a little stricter sometimes. It's not easy language-wise. So I think today, any questions or discussion about the different elements of it would be a help. But we'll talk about it more down the road, and I'd like to get Dick Edwards, I know, has an opinion about this sort of thing. He's not here today, and Ron Weiser was the one who particularly liked the Town of Hingham one, which is a good template, so we would like his advice too. So I'll just kick it off. One thing that jumps out to me is in this bedroom, and then there's a number of things, it has this phrase, "a degree of privacy."
Right.
You know, what's the definition of that? And when I think about, thinking back, looking at the plans, we have a room, and then there's a stairwell coming up to the room, and there may be a little banister on it, but it's kind of all by itself. But we say, because of the hallway and the stairway and the banister, it doesn't have privacy. But this idea of what privacy is, it's hard to define, but, you know, I think sometimes we're too liberal with saying it doesn't have privacy, so it's not a bedroom, when really it's gonna be a bedroom.
Right, it often comes up with the rooms over
But it's
garages.
interesting that this one, they don't get any more explicit either, degree of
Yeah,
privacy.
That's right from the, I didn't change.
Right, so, I mean, I think you can write a regulation where there's some degree of discretion based on what you look, but the hard thing for me is you have to be consistent. If you do it one way, you gotta do it the next time, and then the engineers and the architects, I mean, they are designing right to our rules.
Yeah.
To maximize what they can offer their clients. I don't begrudge them for that, but I mean, that's kind of what happens. But any questions or comments from the board about the language? It, you know, requires a study in a way.
Does the Hingham document use the same phrase, "a degree of privacy"?
I believe so, I think I
I
have it.
think they did.
Yep, that was all exactly the way they had it.
And how long have they been using their document?
I'm not sure.
Is this new, or is this?
It's 2019. Since 2019.
And so this is what they've been working with?
They
and
call it a
it's-
guideline, so,
But they haven't, so it suggests to me that it works okay.
they've been, yeah. I actually had somebody calling about a permit for town, and I talked to them, and he was on the Hingham Board of Health. I asked him to change something on a plan, and he said, "Oh, I totally understand, I was on the Hingham Board of Health." And I said, "Oh, funny, we're stealing your bedroom definition."
Well, the other thing I like
He
is
got it.
this first paragraph, that's purpose, it explains why we're looking at bedrooms and what we're doing and what we're thinking. So if there's some discretion, degree of privacy, at the top of it, there's a kind of an explanation of what we're trying to deal with.
Yeah, the context, yeah.
Yep.
Another thing that jumped out to me is that, and I don't know if it's in our other regulations, but if it's a basement and the room is more than 50% above grade, you know, on a slope, then that's can be considered a bedroom. Sometimes we look at a basement and you just see the basement, but you don't necessarily know the grading on the outside.
Right.
Is that in our regulation? The 50% above?
That's part of Title V.
a state regulation.
Yeah,
But
because you
it's
can't.
emphasized here, I
You have
guess.
to have egress, windows, and sometimes they kind of get around the egress stuff by putting in window wells, with big
And
windows.
are they considered that legal for egress, window well?
If they meet the
Well, it's
five,
basically 5.7 square foot opening,
right.
and that's the egress.
But if it's below grade, it still doesn't, it wouldn't be considered a bedroom if it's more than 50% below grade.
More than 50% of below.
Right.
But it's not uncommon to have it be on a slope where the front is
Right.
below grade and the back is above grade. Because
Right.
we've seen sliders and walkouts and everything.
Right.
50% or more floor space being above grade, so,
And then once we think, well, it's a basement, we say it's not, it can't be a bedroom, but this broadens it a bit, I think. And then it's in a detached structure, like a detached garage with a room above. What do you need to make that a bedroom? And these regulations say you need heat, a shower, and a toilet. So you don't need a full bath, but you can, a shower, and then that's enough to call it a room if it's a detached
Says
structure, a garage
if
or
it
any.
lacks, these three features. If it lacks one of the following, so heat, a shower, or a toilet. The only thing I'm not sure about this one, Lucas and I were talking about it.
So it needs all three, basically, that's
Right.
another way of saying
The
it.
heat thing is kind of an issue, because what happens is they build pool houses that are unheated, and then we go back and they're being rented out for short-term rentals, and they've put splits and, they've gotten, they've added heat. We don't know about that. They can get a plumbing permit to do that without us ever knowing it. So I'm not sure that that's, that is in the housing code. You have to have heat in order for a room to be a bedroom. So if it doesn't have heat, technically we can't call it a bedroom. But we might want to think about that section. I think a shower and a toilet, if it has a shower and a toilet, it's a bedroom regardless of whether it has heat. And we could probably just say that, because they're gonna add heat after the fact if they say it's unheated.
Particularly in a world where the rental
Right,
industry has been growing leaps and bounds, and short-term rentals really don't need heat, I would think, if they're in the summer.
from May, I think it's May 30th through, there's dates that they're not required to have heat,
Right,
so, yeah. So,
yeah.
But there's a number of things that can be done after the initial inspection to quietly change the inside of a house to provide more bedrooms, and probably it's being done. We wouldn't know about it, except short-term rentals, has it been decided that they are going to be required to have a yearly inspection? That's proposed, right? Or it's passed?
no, Karen's inspecting now, not all of them. She's doing
Isn't
a,
the state saying you have to inspect them
yes.
yearly?
Yes, well.
And that's passed, right?
The language is kind of funky because it says, at the request of the owner. So, and it has to be, and it's only non-owner occupied. So we have to kind of drill down to what that means. What does owner occupied mean? So how much time during the year? Like, say someone lives there for 6 months and rents it out for 6 months. Is that owner
Still a
occupied?
rental.
But that's the language in the new housing, in the new building code. So that's their requirement, to have a building inspector go in once a year.
For every short-term rental.
Right, and they are going to be hiring somebody, the
Right,
building
and
department,
increasing
to
the
work
fee.
with us. Yes, presumably.
So the short-term rentals may well be inspected every year, but a private home, but nobody goes back in and inspects it later on, really, unless, you ever do that? Oh, at time of transfer?
We don't, Karen is she's trying to do them once every 3 years, so she's trying to do a third of them this year, and she's done,
And when a home's transferred, is it inspected by the Board of Health or the building inspector for bedroom counts?
No,
No,
no.
right.
So tell me, refresh my memory on what the state did in terms of a new requirement for,
They basically said that every short-term rental has to be inspected by a certified building inspector, which my housing inspector is not and cannot be because she doesn't have a contractor's
and
license.
so this became essentially an unfunded new state mandate.
Yes, exactly.
And is it proposed or is it law now?
It's law, and the town in the new budget put in a position, which got passed last week. So there is a new position for a new building inspector.
That will be credentialed to do that.
Right, so we'll be working through a program to work with them on
And then
these.
how will the funding, how will the fees be allocated between that program and our program in terms of the,
I mean, we'll probably increase our fee, our registration fee. It goes into the general fund, so,
okay, but somehow there ought to be a reflection in the wording in our, I mean, if the inflated fee is gonna be reflected in the Board of Health regulations or the Board of Health, then there ought to be a notation that this increase is related to and driven by an unfunded.
the fee is stipulated in our regulation, correct?
$50 in our regulation. We kept it low intensity.
So
to
we're
start.
gonna have to have a
Proposed
hearing
fee was $150.
in order to increase the fee.
But I don't think we were increasing the fee, it was being increased by the
The
town.
town
Can the
wanted to.
town,
They want to, but it would be through our
we still have
regulation.
to, we
But
still
the I'm saying the wording, whatever the wording is in our
Right.
regulation relating to fees, should be reflective of the fact that this fee
Yeah, if we double up the fee, that's quite a big jump, so.
has to be explained. This
Right.
fee is going up because of a new statewide
Right,
mandate. you know.
right.
Yeah,
So those will all be things that we'll be working on, I would think, in the next 6 months or so.
but the fee increase, we have to approve that.
It has to, it's in our regulations. If-
So the town.
Unless
basically-
they decide to do a
So the
separate
town
fee
is- the
through,
town is
but
asking-
that's kind of
So the town
cumbersome.
basically is asking us to increase the fee.
That's the
That's the
idea.
efficient
Now,
way to
from
do it.
50 to 150, so you
Or
could say
100, yeah, I don't know. if
the extra
that's
$100
exactly-
is a consequence of the inspection that is now required by the state, something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Right,
But people have said, say there's 1,000 short-term rentals, and you're inspecting 1,000 homes per year, is that even, is that possible with one person?
we'll find out.
Right.
And like I
Well,
said,
a lot
it
of
might
towns-
not be 1,000, because if they're owner occupied, and we have to figure out what the state means by that,
Okay, so that's a work in progress.
so it definitely is. But
Yeah. Now, the other big aspect of this document highlights, and I think sometimes we forget about it, the whole house room count. You know, above a certain number of rooms, you know, you take the total number, you divide by half, and that's the presumed number of bedrooms. It's not, you know, it's presumed that you have that many bedrooms just by the size of the house. It doesn't allow you to have that many. It presumes that the house size is equivalent to so many bedrooms, and so you can't do it if you don't have the right septic for it.
I gotta say, I'm still fuzzy in my brain about when the two methodologies take precedent over each other.
well, I
think
put
they're
it,
separate.
I put an asterisk there, so my asterisk says that the board will use the largest bedroom number determined either by whole room count or strict definition, as noted above, to make final bedroom count.
Okay, well, I didn't clearly read that, so.
Um,
So that clear, well,
So
that's
that,
good.
I mean, because I think that's kind of what I've been doing so far.
It's better to have it reflected in.
It says
Right.
over 9, so it means that we count bedrooms by design with our rules, and that's how many bedrooms it has. But if you have 3 bedrooms in a house, but then you have all sorts of workrooms and playrooms and offices and
And there's over 9
yoga
rooms.
rooms and this and that, and that comes up to 12 rooms, and you divide by 12, that's presumed 6 bedrooms, it means your 3-bedroom septic your house design is over what's allowed for your septic system.
Right.
Correct.
And so it's a separate count from the bedroom, so they're not like.
And there may be
one
other
takes precedence,
times.
two separate ways of counting things.
Right, there may
coming
be
at it.
other times when we count more bedrooms than they're saying, well, if you divide it by two and it's still only four, and we're like, well, yeah, but that's five, that's a real
Is there a way to
bedroom.
create a little grid, a little calculation grid, and then it,
Well, it's.
I don't think it's that complicated.
It has to be
I mean,
over
it's
nine-
total- It's
it's
nine
nine total
rooms or
rooms.
more, yeah,
You divide in half, and then you, if it's, 4.5, you drop down to
Round
4.
down.
And that's the presumed number. And then, but, so if you have a three official bedrooms, but you have this great big auxiliary roomed house, and it comes up to 10 rooms, you're presumed to have 5, the house is too big for that septic system. And basically, there's nothing you can do about it except to redesign the house, I guess.
you mean when you say it's too big,
It means that size house is presumed to have, like, for example.
It exceeds.
5 bedrooms,
Yeah.
so it exceeds what's allowed for the 3-bedroom septic.
okay, so the
Even
house
though you
would
have
have to
just-
be
or for the
Even this-
size,
reconfigured.
even though
or
you
for
have
the
just-
size of the lot.
Even though you have just 3 official bedrooms, you're presumed to have 5 because you have all these auxiliary rooms.
So a change would have to be made in the design of that house
Right.
to not,
But this way of counting is not new. It's sort of in there. We haven't really paid much attention
but
to
it's
it.
been, yeah.
But I think when you start talking about basement rooms, 50% above ground is a room, and then their next section
Is a
on how do
bedroom,
you,
it
a
is
bedroom.
counted as a room, or whether
Or
it's
is a-
counted as a bedroom or not,
bedroom, oh, it's a room, yeah,
right?
it's a room. Yeah, because it's bedroom and rooms, so this is rooms. But when, the other thing is the great room, okay?
geez.
Kitchen, dining room, living room, great
many
room, that's
rooms?
one room. But they have put in some extra things. If you have, in an open concept design where the large space has a small dividing wall, half-wall pillars, built-in cabinetry, or other architectural features that protrude into the space or obstructs normal movement within the space and produces a defined visual demarcation, that shall be considered separate rooms. So in other words, you have a great room, but you have a kitchen counter that comes out that cuts off the
Kinda
kitchen area.
separates the main
Then you
room.
can say the kitchen is a room and the rest of it's a great room.
Gotcha.
If you have pillars that run across or a half wall that sets off the dining room,
Now you have 3 rooms.
you can say 3 rooms. Now, I don't think we have thought of it that way, but, they can design around it, but I mean,
Right.
So if it's all wide open like this room, even though you have 4 rooms,
by these
it's
regular,
only 1.
yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't, I mean, most people don't want that type of a
Right.
thing.
And then the other thing that comes up is a loft, the loft, you see that, the loft. They have open lofts, where the whole wall is open to downstairs, and I don't think that, well, and then a loft with a stairwell, this says the stairwell has to be less than 5 feet wide,
Yeah, this is a little confusing.
yeah.
That's for counting it as a room, I guess,
Yeah, to count it as a room,
right?
so if you have a narrow staircase going up, it is a room.
But we also say earlier that it's considered a bedroom, an odd-shaped, on page 1, an odd-shaped or distally located room that meets the prior bedroom definition is a bedroom. These atypical circumstances may include a room over an attached garage, a basement room that is majority above grade and has natural light and ventilation, lofts with limited access, finished attic spaces or storage rooms. And then I added what the definition of finished is, because again, people are kind of, putting in rough plumbing and electricity and calling them unfinished, and then just going in and finishing them after the fact. So,
Right, and the other thing, I keep thinking, we look at plans, and if you have a staircase that goes up into a room, we say it lacks privacy, so it's not a bedroom. But
Coming up from what room? From a hallway or from another room? If you have to, if it's a
Upstairs.
bedroom that you have to walk through to get
Oh,
to,
that's different, yeah.
that's different, yeah.
Anyway, so, but it gets confusing.
Yeah, you have to read this
So,
through
so I
once,
think that,
and-
so you all have a copy of the Hingham one, and now you have Judy's draft.
But Judy's draft reflects and
Reflects,
incorporates the
yes.
Hingham
It's sort of
material.
keyed off that
Yep.
to some
It's
extent.
pretty much the same, I just
And then
added a couple little
we'd have to dig it up, but
asterisks and,
then there's the language of a bedroom definition in our current Title V, or current nitrogen loading regulation. We have that in other.
right, so
someplace
I
else.
guess what I need to do is consult with town council and find out what the best way to incorporate this is. If we do it as a policy, can that supersede, or can it be an addition to our existing definition, which includes, isn't,
It's
this.
gotta be cross-referenced somehow.
Right,
In the
right,
legally adopted
right.
documents.
So I would like
And
to
I'm
do
guessing
that.
he's gonna say it's part of the nitrogen loading regulation, so it's a regulation addendum, so it's gotta go through a public hearing and.
I don't know.
Which we can do, I mean, it's.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah,
It's like,
I
what do
mean,
you,
they call it a guideline, I suppose I could ask them how,
what do you call it, and how do you get it legitimate
Right.
for what it's gonna be called? What's the,
right.
how formalized does the adoption and the acceptance have to be for what
Based
it's
on our-
named?
Based on our regulations too.
Right.
Right. So,
and I think it's something you have to look at and think about how we have looked at plans and so forth and decide what is a reasonable way to put all this. Then it's not automatically, it doesn't come right away. You have to study it a little bit. So I think this is a discussion. We'll bring it back again with whatever extra information we have. I think Ron Reiser has something to contribute, and Dick Edwards, I know, has been talking about this. Ron was the
I
one
think
that
this
liked the
is,
Hingham plan.
I think this pretty much
I think
catches
yeah, I
everybody.
think it does. I'd have to, I'd have to look
so-
through it again, but I think this is,
It's just how we want to incorporate it is the big question at this point. So
And you're
I
gonna
need to do a little more.
but we'll bring it back here so these other members can contribute as well.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Well, we're gonna
Okay,
have to,
good.
we're gonna have to vote on it one way or
Any
another,
questions or
so.
comments from the public? Anyone in the audience want to comment? Oh, okay. All right, so that's good.
There's
That's
no one online.
a pretty good start.
Let's see.
And,
Yeah, Lucas.
okay, so,
Lucas.
public comments, future agenda items request from anybody or from the public? We'll have a Mill Hill update, there's a process going on there. And,
No, I do need to, and I haven't forgotten about putting the airport back on the agenda. And then I've also started looking at some of our IA data, our innovative alternative systems.
yes,
I pulled out a whole year's worth of data, and I'm not good at charting things and such, but it
but
looks,
I think the big question there
I was
was,
looking at like what the median is and the
Yeah.
numbers. They're not as bad as everybody
of
thinks
the
they are.
IA systems, we had to report one study.
Right.
The IA systems, is it shown that one works better than the other? Now, they put in the one that's least expensive. Does that work significantly less well as something that's more expensive? How much more
Right.
expensive is
So
that?
this is a discussion we can
And we
have because
a subset list of the state list that this town wants.
the state, yes, we can, and we can talk about this at a hearing, but, or at another posted agenda, but there is, a best available technology, category in Title V, and they haven't determined that there are any best available technologies, but they do recommend two specific that are getting as close as they possibly can, so we could talk about that.
Not only how it performs, but how do you factor in the cost aspect?
Right, they're probably more expensive, and then I think the board needs to also think about, the fact that we're sewering, and is it
That's a very good,
is it really something that we want to, flip over at this
Yeah.
point, so.
exactly right.
So, yeah, so that'll be a discussion we
Although
can
the
have.
silvering dates go way out, pretty much, but I don't know if we, there is a plan though, isn't it? Approximate dates for the, anyway, we can talk about
Oh,
that.
for
And
the
then-
sewering, yeah.
And then the airport, yeah. What's their plan? What's the end point? And for the lead out. Okay.
All right, good.
Good. All right, so then we can deal with the minutes from April 28th. Anybody have any additions, subtractions, corrections?
I'll make a motion, we accept the draft minutes of April 28th, 2025.
Okay, and we'll take a vote. Carol Boyce,
Approved.
John Beckley,
Aye.
Joanna Kale,
Aye.
and Noble Hanson, aye. All right, and then I guess we can adjourn the meeting. And I'll take a voice, Carol. Joe Boyce, yes?
Yes.
John Beckley,
Yes.
Joanna Kale,
Yes.
and Noble Hanson, yes. So we are adjourned.